Hi, welcome to In the Middle podcast. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about Joe Rogan Experience podcast show, Dave Smith versus Douglas Murray. So in a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience featuring Dave Smith and Douglas Murray, a significant point of contention arose regarding the Israel and Palestine conflict. Murray repeatedly challenged Smith's authority to comment on the situation, emphasizing Smith's lack of first-hand experience in the region. Murray asked Dave, when was the last time you ever visited Israel since you spent so much time talking about the crossings? Have you ever been there, seen it with your own eyes? I think he shot that question multiple times throughout the episode, and it's actually one of the more criticized parts of his bit, where people accused him of trying to suppress Dave's freedom of speech. Just as how Dave pushed back a few seconds later, he said, "I've never been to Israel. Why? Am I not allowed to talk about it? Have you ever been to Nazi Germany? How come you get to talk about it?" He meant a Holocaust. It might sound logical when you first hear it, but that's complete sophistry. Let me tell you why I don't think Douglas is suppressing anybody's freedom of speech. Instead, he's holding Dave to a higher standard here. So there is this legal principle of hearsay versus live and in-court testimony. First-hand accounts from those directly involved carries much more weight than a hearsay. For example, the most direct accounts of events come from confessions, statements, and testimonies made by victims, suspects, and eyewitnesses. When direct evidence is available, it's required to be presented. No court would ignore the statements of living eyewitnesses in favor of second-hand hearsay. Hearsay it's treated with caution, is often not admissible, and is generally only used to support or corroborate direct evidence, not to replace it. If we apply it to the public discourse, of course not everyone can afford to travel around the world to have the first-hand experience, but it wouldn't be hard at all for people who build their entire career around discussing these sensitive geopolitical topics on a platform that could engage such a large audience. They have a responsibility to seek out the truth and incorporate first-hand evidence, such as visiting the region, speaking to locals, and witnessing events. This isn't about stifling speech, but ensuring that the discourse is informed and credible, thereby fostering a more nuanced and respectful dialogue. This approach should serve as a foundation for responsible and effective public commentary. And then after Dave asked, "Have you ever been to Nazi Germany?" blah blah, Murray responded, "You can't time travel, but you can travel." But I really doubt that Dave has got his point. Then the conversation goes on to the part where Douglas said, "Now I slightly get an idea of where you're coming from. You have read about this blockade, and so you imagine that that's what it is." Then it brings me to think how individuals adopt information that aligns with their pre-existing beliefs. If I read about the blockade before fully accepting the term brutal blockade, I'd question the definition. What makes a blockade brutal? For example, how do we differentiate between words like harsh, strict, stern, and brutal? Such nuances matter when forming an informed opinion. Dave Smith's stance on the Israel-Palestine conflict suggests a tendency to embrace information that confirms his emotional and ideological needs. It's a textbook confirmation bias, because he quickly jumps at it without inspecting the basic facts. For example, he mentioned that the potato chips are not allowed into Gaza, but it's only half of the truth. There was indeed a ban back in the year 2007 when the blockade first started, but 3 years later, in the year 2010, the ban was already lifted. Honestly, I doubt Dave Smith even has the logical or analytical ability to verify the facts. He probably doesn't. As I was watching how he debated John Spencer, the director of Modern War Institute of West Point, on Piers Morgan Uncensored show the other day. So Dave kept saying he doesn't want to appeal to the law of war, instead prefers to appeal to logic. but I'm pretty amazed. He seems to conveniently forget that law is one of the most rigorous logical frameworks we have to regulate human conduct. All right, I'm going to try to finish the rest of the podcast, and maybe I'll find more to say. Ciao, ciao. Until then.